Welcome to the Fantasy Thinker. I'm Jared, and today I'm going to be discussing Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children. And so I sat and I stared at this book, and I have the same mental block towards writing a review on it as I do when approaching a task at my real job. There is a certain consternation that comes with managing something that seems at first unmanageable. There is a hesitancy to belaboring the obvious, even when that may be what is called for. It's difficult to call a spade when what you're actually looking at is a shovel. I took my time reading this book, hoping to absorb every little nugget of insight and relevancy that this book could dish out. Suddenly, I realized I dug so deep I couldn't climb out of the hole I made. So as I sit in my hole and wonder about my plight, let's just go over what this book is about. Let's see if we can float above the pit and fill it with fresh dirt that will allow some thoughts to grow and blossom into something intelligible. Midnight's Children begins with the birth of Salim Sinai. I think that's how it's said. Sorry if it's not. Salim is born exactly at midnight on the eve of India's independence from the colonial reigns of the British Empire. Since then, his fate is tied into the fortunes of his home country, which he blames on the occult tyrannies of those blandly saluting clocks. That statement, like most in this book, is brilliantly placed and relevant on so many levels. In the course of Salim's life, there is plenty of blame, plenty of mysticism, lots of tyranny, lots of redundancy, plenty of saluting, and various machinations of playing with the concept of time. Every sentence in this book resonates with such relevancy that it would be impossible to continually break down the book in such a manner, well, at least for me. Needless to say, Rushdie mastered word choice with this book. The mixture of the magical realism, or what I like to call fantasy, something Mr. Rushdie and I disagree about, but I digress. The mixture of magical realism to real world events is interwoven with a subtlety that defies description. Salim's life is constantly barraged by magical happenstance that is shunned, ignored, or unacknowledged, yet has direct consequence and significance to the life of a budding nation. Rushdie uses the titles of his unnumbered chapters in clever ways. Each title is laced with meaning, and each chapter signifies its own little contained story while still being intricately tied into the narrative as a whole. Each chapter's relevance to the others is apparent in the results of his life's ups and downs. Even though each chapter has its own subject, you can still detect traces of the other chapters within the confines of the narrative frame. The idea of the perforated sheet is one of the most profound images I've ever read. It represents the falsity of vision, the perfidy of modesty, the denial of knowledge, the fractured picture, the pinnacle of disinformation. Yet it also protects what shouldn't be seen, reduces painful revelation, entices exploration, and provides fuel for ambition. This extended explanation of how Salim's grandparents met is one of the most beautiful and sublime moments in literature, yet it's also devastating how the revelation, in all the magic in the world, logically, doesn't lead to happily ever after. I could continue with these examples, but I think the point has been made. Even though this book came out in 1981, it still seems very relevant today. And in Rushdie's own words, that is the real prize that a writer can strive for: longevity. If you're not a fan of magical realism and heavy metaphorical allusions, this book may not be for you. If you're not a fan of Rushdie's essays or life choices and choose not to read this because of them, then you may want to reevaluate that decision, because I think you're truly missing out on something really special. And with all that said, yeah, this is one of the best books I've read this year. Go out, check it out. Probably one of the best books I read all time. It's up there. All right, so that's it. Midnight's Children, Salman Rushdie. Be good to each other, and thank you.